Welcome to the What Is Up podcast. On today's episode, Bubba sits down with his cousin-in-law, Scott Broten Jr., a suit-wearing IT technician for a multi-billion-dollar insurance company by day and by night. A freedom-loving, patriotic volunteer firefighting dad and husband who knows we should all kneel for the Lord and stand for the flag. Amen. Here is your host, Bubba Seaman.
All right, welcome to another episode of the What Is Up podcast. If you like what you hear today, be sure to leave a 5-star review, like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment wherever you're listening or watching. And be sure to share it as much as you like. Share it on your social media, email, good old-fashioned word of mouth. I don't care how you tell your friends. Just help me reach more people. And maybe, just maybe, it'll get me out of the factory and behind this microphone for a living. I doubt it, but if you're looking for more good content, try some of these podcasts that I regularly listen to. Unashamed, it's a Bible study with funny stories from Phil, Al, and Jace Robertson. Relatable with Allie Beth Stuckey. She looks at all the current issues with a Christian worldview, and she has people on all the time that she doesn't quite agree with, and they know how to talk to each other. Cooper's Stuff. Skillet lead singer John Cooper, he addresses everything. You got to check it out. And if you're more local in the Wapsie Valley area, Talk of the Tribe, man. Zach Bavers and Riker Oberly, they discuss all things Wapsie Valley. Those are kids that are actually being proactive, so they give us hope for the next generation. My guest today is a guy that I've watched grow up since he was a little kid, and now he's a dad, husband, volunteer firefighter. He's a patriot and an IT computer programming genius. Scott Broten Jr., what is up, man?
Hey, how's it going? Good to be here.
Now, it's kind of weird because I've always called you Scooter, but as you got older, it just didn't feel right calling you that unless it was just us family around. So sometimes I say Scott, sometimes I say Scooter. It's a little different. But for those of you guys who don't know, Scott's my wife's cousin, so I can get away with calling him Scooter even though he's a grown man. And let me tell you, dude, you've come a long way since those mean fields of 5th and 6th grade flag football in Dunkerton where, in my mind, I swear I remember you as this gangly, young, white Randy Moss type character. And we did pretty good. I think we won a lot of games, man. But, you know, like so many of us former high school football players, I wish there had been a future for you in football, but I'm glad you took Joe Biden's advice to heart and you just learned how to code, and it really took you somewhere. So for the listeners who don't know, back in high school, I was always on again, off again with Scott's older cousin, Sarah. She eventually became my future wife. And Scott would have been a little kid in elementary school kind of back then. And my first real memory of interacting with you was a day at Backbone State Park. Do you remember that or no?
No, I don't.
You do. Ouch. Ouch.
I've had, I think, too many concussions throughout my football career.
Well, that was, yeah. And that was a while ago. It was when you could still swim at Backbone State Park. And I was actually, at one point, we're in the lake, and I was throwing you and Amanda and Sean around. And I remember it real clearly because it was the day that your dad, Scott Sr., he finally acknowledged my existence. It was like I had won over Stan, Sarah's dad, you know, a long time ago. But the legend, who is Uncle Scott, was a much tougher nut to crack, man. It was like 2 years of dating, and all I got was one compliment. And I remember this compliment. It wasn't even in person. He had told Sarah after a football game, a high school football game, that he thought I looked like the only guy out there trying to hit somebody. So, but that was it. That's all I ever heard positive from him for a long time. And I think that day at Backbone, he kind of saw me as this cocky high school upperclassman playing with his kids in the lake, and it finally hit him like, this guy's not so bad. Maybe he's worthy of his niece. So just a few years later, when me and Sarah were thinking about getting married, guess who was there offering me wisdom into why marriage and family is so valuable?
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. No.
Yeah, that was
big tough guy on the exterior, right? But
yep.
Big teddy bear once you crack the nut.
That's right. That's right. And I don't think I'm supposed to say it, but my goodness, it's been 22 years or whatever. He even loaned me a few $100s for the wedding rings. You went to the little spot in the closet and got the money. I remember him telling you, go get it. I had the money coming. I just didn't have it at the time. And he actually loaned me a few $100s for wedding rings. So there's a tip to all you young people out there. You do not have to. If you don't have the means, you don't need to spend thousands on your wedding bands. A few $100 will do just fine. So then after me and Sarah got married, her brother, your other cousin Lance, me and him, we wanted to team up and coach a team in your flag football league. And that was kind of where the whole White Randy Moss thing came about. So those were good times. I got some memories from there. You got any memories from that stuff?
That was, I'd say, kind of the foundation of my passion for football and sports. I'd always been an athletic kid, loved being outside. Growing up, we had a good group of kids in the community there in Dunkerton that just lived all in the same block, basically. Yeah. We'd always go down to the band's house, play football out in the front yard. It was fun when we finally got to the point where we played organized sports together. Mm-hmm. That flag football point obviously was the opportunity for us to start to come together. If I remember correctly, it was that flag football group where we were doing some traveling. So much different than what the Wapsie Valley flag football program even looks like. Right? Like we were going around to Waterloo and some of the other towns of the sort. So very enjoyable. I loved it. It's always fun. Get to interact with others, and what's even better about it is when your cousins are helping coach things. Right?
Yeah. Lance ran the defense. He was way more defensive minded than me, and I ran the offense. And I remember you weren't our first pick, because if anybody knows anything about boys and girls in 5th and 6th grade, girls they start blossoming before. So there was always one or two girls that were fast, and we always took somebody from the girl side first, but. Yeah, we did good. We had a lot of fun. It was really good. And I think your dad even did something one year where he said, if you guys win the championship, we'll go up to Joe's Fast Break and eat pizza or whatever. Ice cream. Yeah.
Pizza and ice cream.
Yep. And so, we worked real hard on that. I think Scott Graham ended up beating us in the championship one year, but that's been a long time ago. Good stuff. Let's see here. So the only reason that Sarah and I even got to the point at that time where we were thinking about getting married, we began seeking the Lord and His will for our lives. We kind of looked at our 20s coming up, and we're just like, man, this doesn't look very promising. Fun, but no real sustainable, any real joy or happiness. So that's kind of when we started taking the church seriously and what the pastor was saying, like, man, maybe that's something we ought to look into. So we got involved in the First Baptist Church there in Dunkerton and started participating in the Awana Club, which is a kids club for kindergarten through 6th grade, and that's something you were in the last couple of years you were in it, then I was helping out with it, so we got to interact a little bit down there as well. But then came high school for you, and I remember going to a lot of your football games and stuff, and I can honestly say that playoff run that you guys had, like Colt Robertson, Blake Fisher, I know I'm leaving a couple other kids out, like Trent Cooper,
Adam Clark,
the kids from those flag football days, like watching you guys get involved in that stuff. It got me excited for 8-man, because it seems like everyone talks about 8-man football like it's this knock. It's not real football. Well, it's different football, but go watch it. It gives the smaller schools a chance to still play football, still be competitive, and I enjoyed it. And I really didn't see much of a difference, and that's what I tell people. There's a collision at the line, so there's a scrum of guys. Yeah, it's a little faster, a little more high scoring, but it is fun football to watch, and it's nothing that should be looked down upon for sure. And then throughout those kind of high school years and after high school, we spent a lot of years hunting together as a group, all of us, all you Brotens and me being just about the only outsider until recently. We got a lot of stories to tell, and some are probably ones we shouldn't tell, but we got to tell some of those hunting stories, because I mean that was a yearly tradition, year in, year out, and lots of good stuff. It seems like it always start with right before deer season, we'd go up to Cabela's for Stan's birthday or something, and just the way Stan would make fun of your dad, and just it was always a good time. But what kind of stories, or what do you want to share about any of that time?
Oh, those were quite the years. We did that for a number of years. I mean, like I said, up until just the past few. I started going in 3rd grade. It's ironic when I look back to that time in my life. Now where I am, and I'll get into this probably a bit more in my interest, I'm not a fan of reading. I remember explicitly out there, 3rd grade me, maybe 70 pounds with all of my gear on, and I'm bored, cold, we're not seeing any deer, my dad's snoozing off and on, snoring, and I pulled a book out because I think I was on deer watch, and I'm like, well, we're not going to see anything with the old man sawing logs over here. So it was one of those like Captain Underpants flip-o-rama where you know,
yeah.
Well, they're great. I'm like, oh, this is whatever. You know, I'm getting into flipping the pages. I must have woke my dad up. He's like, we're never going to see any deer if you keep flipping the pages like that. So that was my first experience that I remember deer hunting. Obviously, the time that we spent in, we used to always go out a couple weeks before. We'd prepare, kind of get ready. Do you remember the big hill we used to always walk up?
Yeah.
Years. So let me paint this picture for everybody.
Oh, you're going to make us look stupid.
Well, this was before all of the GPS and, good map views. So we only knew what we knew. And Cork, for those of you that don't know, again, another family household nickname, my uncle Stan,
yeah.
Nickname in the household, Cork. So his buddy actually showed us this spot up outside of Fayette and Volga recreation area.
Yep.
We would always park at pretty much the first public access spot. We'd walk up a hill, a pretty steep hill.
Very steep.
And then you'd trudge across cornfield most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Typically it was picked at that point, but you're walking across all the stubble that's still left out there. And then we'd go and we'd hunt in various things in 1,000+ acre park. And we're all hunting right on top of each other. And there was 6-7 of us, and we're within yelling distance to the point that we could use whistles and things.
Whistles, yep.
At this point, I guess my excuse for not knowing any better of where I'm going here was I was third grade, and I was just following
young.
my cousins, my dad, and my uncle. And then fast forward, I don't know, years. We did this walk for years.
Yeah, we did.
And finally, somebody has the idea, instead of walking straight up this hill, which would be going north, and then you'd cut hard left, and now you're headed west.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, there's a cornfield straight west out of the front of the truck. Instead of going up this hill, let's take that path and see where it leads us. Lo and behold, it just kind of wraps around this big hill that we've been climbing like a bunch of behemoths for years, only to find out that there was a much easier way to do it. And again, we didn't know any better, and there was a number of times where we're lugging all of the gear, the deer cart, the chairs, the guns. Even, times in deep snow.
Yeah.
And for no reason.
No reason at all.
Other than we didn't think to, look for a different way.
Yeah.
So, good times. I remember the one time my dad faked a heart attack when I was, I don't know, maybe 4th, 5th grade. My uncle was just 100, 200 yards down from us. We were on the opposite side of the ravine. Again, cell phones weren't not known for at least our household at the point in time. So we communicated with whistles and things. Well, I didn't know where my whistle was, and my dad fell down to his knees and clutched his chest, and he goes, "Oh, I think I'm having a heart attack. Get help!" And vulnerable me, very family focused and want to do what I can to help people. Well, at that age, I didn't know what to do. So I took off sprinting. Mind you, we're out supposed to be hunting. I think this was after our lunch together. So we were just out walking around being active. And I just take off sprinting, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs for my Uncle Cork.
Oh my gosh.
Running in all of my gear. And my dad just busts out laughing. And I'm like, really? This is what we're going to joke about right now. Now none of us are going to see any deer because I was just screaming like a madman.
Yeah, you just ruined the afternoon.
We might as well just go home. And I was so mad. And he thought it was hilarious. Now, as we reflect on that story, he's always like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that.
No. Man. That's bad. That's their humor though, man.
That's the Broten humor.
And that chain of command though, remember, me and Lance didn't know anything either. So you may have been looking to your older cousins. We were looking to your dad and uncle.
The guy's faking accidents.
Yeah. It wasn't until, probably 5 years in, me and Lance started looking at each other like, wait a minute. Stan and Scott aren't hunting experts, maybe we ought to start looking into stuff ourselves. And we did. And we eventually spread out to a second and third parking spot. And I still hunt that. We say it's the first entrance to the park because we come in the back way. Yeah. So it's still at the very end of the park. And back then, dude, there was a lot of people there. The first couple years, I can't remember if you were in it the first couple years we went or not, but me and Lance were scared. We were scared. It was shots all day, Saturday and Sunday. We didn't have any good gear. We were cold. But then as you get in it for a few years and you actually get a deer, and then, you start building a little bit of a savings, you can have some equipment and some cold weather stuff, and it ended up being really good. I remember one year when you were young, I don't know if we were standing around at lunch or before or what it was, but I looked down and obviously your mind is just wandering, and you started meowing like a little cat. I mean, you're just this little squirrely kid, who's just happy to not be in school, bored out of his mind. He started meowing. But probably the most memorable story I got, and I know you'll remember this, it was probably around your college days, maybe even after that, when we went into lunch in Fayette, and on our drive in, the sides of the roads were clear. And then when we left, there was a deer on our way back to the park. There was a deer on the side of the road. Do you remember that?
Oh, I know where this is going.
Okay, so this is it. So the statute of limitations is passed. I think we're in like 2 or 3 vehicles, because I'm talking to a buddy at Omega on the phone who always asks me, hey, what are you seeing, all that stuff. And I see you guys pull over. So I pull over, I pass you, then I pull over. So I'm watching this go down in my rearview mirror, and you guys are all standing around this deer that had obviously been hit at some point while we were eating lunch. And I mean, in my rearview mirror, all I see is all the commotion. I see him standing there. I see the deer get up. I see Lance run to his truck and grab guns that he loaded in the blink of an eye somehow, or they were already loaded, and he pursued to shoot this deer from the road, then ran down off the side of the road, down into the woods, and shot this. I think he had you go retrieve a gun for him because he ran out of bullets. Did he? Do I remember that?
I don't know. I think it was after the fact that he was worried about whether or not it was completely down. Yeah,
he grabbed his handgun or something.
Out of Tommy Boy almost when that deer is in the back of the car, right?
Like, yes.
I think my dad and Cork were in the vehicle in front of us, and then we seen this deer. So Lance pulls off the side of the road.
Yep.
And he jumps out, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get out. Well, as soon as he's standing there, we see the deer. It's laying on its side. I mean, visibly just hit by a vehicle. And we can see it blink, and then its tail flicks. And before I know it, Lance is back to the truck, grabbing a gun.
The details are fuzzy, but that's...
He's standing pretty much on the roadway. I think he was probably on the gravel shoulder at this point, because the deer jumped up and tried to run into the ditch, and he kind of finished the deal at that point. Wow. I do know that I had to go into the ditch and help retrieve it. And, of course, of all of the ditches up there, most of them are not that bad. This is right next to, like, a small waterway.
Yeah.
So it was a steep ravine that we're now pulling a deer that's not gutted because of the situation. Throw a tag on it quick, I think. I don't even know if that happened.
Oh, I remember. We drove straight into the park with it.
Oh, yeah. And
that's when he gutted it. And it's like, that's the dumbest thing ever. You do this from a roadway, busy roadway, the main roadway, north-south between Fayette and West Union, and then you drive into the park to finish breaking the law. Like, no, just, I mean, there's rules for roadkill. There's a way to do it and a way not to do it, and I think we check the boxes. Not really Lance. We'll throw him under the bus. Lance.
This has been years ago.
That was but that's probably one of the funniest ones I got. I mean, and hearing Stan tell, it's even funnier, because he said you guys were standing around talking, and he goes, I think it just blinked at me, or I think it just breathed or something, and it's just, that's funny. Good times, man. Good stories. Okay, so that brings people up to speed on my recollection of watching you grow up and stuff like that. So why don't you just take some time and tell people about yourself, starting in childhood, family upbringing, teen year, go through the list, get all the way up to hobbies and interests today, man.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know me, born and raised in Dunkerton, grew up there, born in 91, I guess. Got an older sister, just a year older than I am, Amanda, and then younger brother, Sean. Sean and I are 5 years apart. Mom and Dad still live in the same house that we grew up in. Sean actually just moved out earlier this year, so Mom and Dad finally empty nesters, which has been an adjustment for them, I'd say. Just trying to figure out, what that means for them and how they move things forward. We were always family focused growing up. That was really kind of the emphasis. We were very close. Cork, close in town at that point anyways. Even once they moved out just north there of Fairbank, we spent a lot of time out there. I know as a kid, me and my dad especially would go out there every every weekend, it seemed. I think, most Sundays,
yeah,
at
we
least
did a
the
lot.
two of us would go out, and lots of good memories out there on the farm with the pigs, sweet corn, the corn fiasco, as I'll refer to it, the one year where instead of sweet corn, popcorn was planted. I don't know if you remember that. I think I still have calluses on my hand from trying to get all of the kernels off of the popcorn.
Wow.
The barn burning down, and the adventures of trying to tear that thing down.
Yeah.
Grew up in town, but had some country life through that, which was really fun. Sports, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, were a big thing, and we had a really close group of friends there that all lived together. It made it easier with what my mom did and working from home, doing in-home daycare. My dad worked a lot at that point as a laborer out of the mega cabinets, which almost all of us in the family have done some time there.
Yeah,
My dad, my sister, my brother, me, you, Lance, Sarah, I think even did some time there,
she didn't last very long. She's got the short stint there.
Which, I think is a very humbling experience for those of us that no longer are in the factory world. I've taken a lot of learnings from that. I know there were some times, even in my college years, while I was going to college full-time, I was also working full-time at Omega. And, would get on my soapbox. Looking back at it now, I was talking to my parents the one night, and I'm sure Haley was there, and was just going on about how, man, I don't know how people can do this their whole life. It's like a machine. You get up, you go, you do the same thing.
Yep.
And there's years, like my dad, 30-something years, I think, before he retired here. That's all he knew.
That's what you did.
And, he was doing what he needed to do, provide means for the family.
Yeah.
Very hard on him and his body, but he got up, he did it. He never complained. I never once heard him complain as a kid. My mom worked 60-plus hours a week doing daycare. And those really are values that have been instilled into me.
Absolutely.
And just seeing that, the dedication, but also just their outpouring of love for one another. And, that something to be said, you don't see it as much anymore.
No, your parents, they have a really special marriage, dude. The way they show love back and forth to each other, it's not lost on me. I've noticed that since I was young to now. Like, that is impressive.
Yeah, well, and even more so now with my dad's health issues and things that have been happening there. That takes a lot on both of them, mentally and even physically. So, growing up, it was fun. I don't remember as much of my youth as I would like to. For those of you curious, not drugs related. No, as I'd mentioned, I've had a number of concussions, too many to count, honestly.
Yeah.
Wasn't as big of a thing. I'm probably part of the reason why there's now strict concussion
why it moved
rules.
Yeah
Talking about sports, that senior year playoff run, that game we had, I was concussed early. And
the Janesville game?
Yeah, I don't remember any of it other than I got my bell rung. And I wouldn't change anything that happened as part of that. In fact, looking back and reflecting, and as Haley and I constantly reflect on where things are at, and where could we maybe change things, and honestly, a lot of things just kind of happen. There's a greater being that kind of puts things in your
place.
life, and you how you respond and react to it obviously can define you. But I was good enough at football in high school that I could have went and played D1 somewhere. My junior year, I had some injuries with my knee. Recovered in the off season from that, and then my senior year was really going to be the year. We spent a fair amount of time doing some things. My parents took me around the Midwest doing sports camps. Went and did a combine, basically the same type of thing that college graduates do as they're preparing for the NFL draft. Was ready to go and kind of make that next big move in my sports career. But then also go and pursue a 4-year degree in college.
Education.
Something that I was more passionate about even than the sports thing. As part of that time, I had a girlfriend, which now is my wife. Haven't got to that yet. We'll come around to that here in a moment. But spent a lot of time trying to just figure out what I wanted to do, how I wanted to compete. And I liked football from the fact that it gave me a release and an out. That senior year ended up re-injuring my knee. Was told I was done, no more football at that point. And it was pretty significant knee injury. torn ligaments, cartilage, meniscus, and even broke the bones from the impact of what had happened there. Fortunately, my parents, Haley, and some good classmates, and even my coach, Jeremy Hesse at the time, helped kind of guide and mentor me through that period. For those of you that know me, I'm very determined,
right?
Kind of hard-headed at times.
Yep.
This was one of those pivotal moments in my life of, more than likely my football opportunities are done. In fact, they were done at the collegiate level at this point.
Right.
We didn't have some of the capabilities at that point to do things like they can now, and the fact that it had recurred. But I was able to go through and actually get cleared to finish the season out. But bringing it back around now to, things happen for a reason. Haley and I wouldn't be where we are today without that football injury.
Yep.
We talk a lot about it. If I had went and played D1 football, it would have strained our relationship. D1 level sports, especially we wouldn't have been at the same school.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't have worked out.
Yep.
So I'm glad things worked out there the way they did. Haley certainly kept me honest and accountable through all of that. She was my biggest cheerleader through all of this. Traveled with my parents to all of the games.
Yep.
They formed a really close, tight bond through all of that. Pretty cool. So on the Haley front, we started dating my sophomore year, her junior year.
And she was a Wapsie girl. She wasn't a Dunkerton kid.
Yeah, Wapsie girl. Tanya actually was
that's
who
right.
introduced us a year or two prior
Yeah.
at a basketball game. So, thanks to Tanya, I guess, for playing matchmaker.
All right.
And yeah, so, fast forward, that was in 2007, and we ended up getting married 2011. So I proposed in 2010, which would have been just going into my second year of college at that point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
we knew we wanted to be together. There was no point in kind of dragging things out. I worked my butt off that summer, trying to make and save up as much money as I could. Worked a couple construction gigs, picked up odds and ends things here and there.
Dang.
Was working at Omega full time, and was able to save up, $1,500 or whatever it was at that point in time. A lot for broke college kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be able to buy the ring, and she ultimately said yes out on a family vacation, and here we are.
Nice.
Happily married for the last 12 years now. So.
Attaboy.
The other piece, I guess, as part of that, from there, graduated college, and I guess even as part of college, I knew what I wanted right away in high school even. I've always had a knack for being a problem solver.
Okay.
Didn't matter if it was hands-on, if it was messing around on the computer, anything. I was always curious and always wanted to keep learning. And through that, was attracted also to the business side of things. I'd seen how my mom worked and some of the book works and things that she had to do, and just like kind of that financial aspect of like, how do you help apply problem solving with practical skills and implementation to then also making something out of it for an organization. At the end of the day, we work because we have to. We need to make ends meet.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If I'm going to do it, I might as well do something I enjoy and also make an impact.
Words of wisdom right there, man.
Impact, right? So in high school, made the determination after my football career was done that I was just going to go to UNI, close to home, but still could get out, get on my own.
Yeah.
Haley and I were in a serious relationship. Knew we both wanted to get out of small town and go and do something for ourselves. So went to UNI, graduated Dunkerton actually with enough college credits and high enough grades that I ended up pretty much not paying for any of my college. I think I graduated with $3,000 of student loans from UNI by the time I was all done.
Wow.
Did it in 3 years.
That's practically nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang.
And was actually able to negotiate when I ended up getting my job offer, my first job offer, Kinney Mutual Group, negotiated a signing bonus. And my signing bonus was enough. I just turned 21, so I went through college in 3 years because of the college credits I had through high school. 3 year in and out, very focused, nose to the grindstone, working full time, trying to figure out this newly wed thing, because Haley and I got married going into my senior year of college. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
But negotiated signing bonus, pretty much graduated college at that point with no student loan debt. My
free.
last college final was the same day that I turned 21. Knew I had a good paying software developer programming job. Had enough money left by the time I paid off college, paid for our vacation, which we saved up for most of it anyways, to then also go and buy myself a big boy gun because I was not 21, so I could buy a handgun.
Oh, okay. All right.
So the joke, Haley went with me down to the courthouse. We were living in Black Hawk County at that point. She sent a picture to a few people and said, oh, Scott's just turned 21 and we're already down at the law center, down by the jail there. We were there for better reasons than me getting booked, right?
A little misleading.
Yeah, but that's my wife. She has a
shame
good
on
sense
you,
of humor.
Haley.
So we were living in Cedar Falls, like I mentioned. We moved out right after summer of graduating high school. Lived there, moved from an apartment to a trailer that we ended up buying. My parents helped spot us on that one. So
yep, I remember that.
Constantly doing what they can to help us. We repaid them, had the trailer actually free and clear. Turned around and sold that then to then have equity into a house. So we lived down in Cedar Falls, kind of in the heart of it there, for a couple of years at that point.
Yeah, I remember that.
And decided after a couple of years post-college, both of us had good jobs. Haley was working at Principal at the time, and she still is there now. I'm still at Kidder Mutual, now True Stage. Decided, we're content. What are we doing with our lives? We're like, yeah, things are going well. Good jobs, good education. We were living in Cedar Falls. It's a lot harder for us young adults at that point to get involved in the community. So we're like, might as well have kids. Like, we'll give this thing a try. Unfortunately, we didn't have any struggles conceiving. And then came Layla. So that was really, kind of the start of things and where we got rolling at that point. Looking back now, a lot of my background and interests continue to be the same, but they've certainly evolved as well.
Yeah.
A big part of what's constantly fueled me is just how do we take the blessings that we've been given and give those back to others in various ways. So once we moved out of Cedar Falls, in fact, we hadn't even moved out of Cedar Falls yet, I knew I wanted to get involved in the community. We ended up moving just outside of Reedland, which is a long story. I don't know how much we want to go into that now, but I'll keep it brief and then we can maybe dive into this.
Sure.
Haley did not want to move back to Reedland. She grew up in Reedland. She did not want to move back to small town drama.
Okay.
We wanted a small town for our kids. We had Layla at that point, just an infant.
Yeah.
Didn't want to go to Dunkerton. We were hoping, Dyke, Hudson, Denver, that kind of smaller school size. Still close to home. Our parents, Dunkerton and Tripola, Reedland area. So it's like, we want to still be close, but we want to be independent and make our own name for ourselves. We don't want to be known as, you're Scott Broten, son of Scott and Rosine. No, we want to be our own thing. Well, we sold our house to a friend early January of 2014, and we were like, we'll be fine. He didn't want to take possession until Memorial Day, so we're like, we have months, figure something out, right? Well, it was a long winter. Spring came late. We knew we didn't want to live in town anymore. Nobody's putting houses for sale where we want to be. And we're like looking at everything. We're traveling all over. We put miles on the vehicles. Jolie, he was helping us as a realtor. He's sending us stuff constantly. And like, we're just grasping at straws at this point. Lo and behold, Haley finds something on, I think it was a Friday night, on Craigslist. And she's like, hey, this looks like what we want. Kind of on the higher end of what we were wanting to spend at that time. But we're like, hey, we got to do this, or we're going to be living with a dog, 2 cats, and then the 3 of us. And at this point, Layla's 3-4 months old, out of a camper that we didn't even own. But I had a coworker that owned a farm out towards Clarksville. And she's like, hey, worst case scenario, it's going to be spring and summer. You guys can just live out of the camper.
Wow.
Fortunately, this house that we looked at was everything we wanted. So we made an offer on the spot. We've been there since, so...
That's a nice setup you got out there.
So to Reedland, and we knew some people in the Reedland-Tripola area through bowling that we did with Haley's parents. And one of the guys we knew was like, hey, you should get on the fire department. We have an opening. I'm like, okay, whatever. It was a Tripola address, even though we're just a few miles outside.
Right, yeah.
He was the chief at the time in Tripola, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, get me an application. I'll at least know a couple people. Get me on. Well, no, actually, we're in Reedland Fire District. And I'm like, oh, great, Reedland, Wapsie Valley, Dunkerton, for whatever dumb reason, I wouldn't even call it much of a rivalry because they almost always whooped us.
Yeah.
But, it was just in my mind. And I think it was fueled more by the fact that Haley was from here.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of clashed with the other kids in the grades from both schools.
Yep.
But I was like, well, I want to get involved. So I ended up putting an application in. That would have been in April. Got voted on in the May business meeting. And we didn't even officially own our house yet at this point. So on the fire department, not even technically living in the district yet, but they knew obviously that we're going to buy it. And the chief from Tripola is also on the Reedland department because he worked in town. So he was able to say, yeah, no, this guy's good, and been on set. So that was a good way for me to come in, get involved, and it's been a big pivotal part of what I do. And even just a few years ago now, got involved in Reedland First Responders as well. So lots of opportunities to get engaged and
there's your community involvement.
Try and get back to the community. Yep.
Man, sounds good. We're going to take our first sponsor break. DeLong Snow and Lawn Care, LLC. Do you need help with your lawn? Are you too busy or too old to do it yourself anymore? Or do you just want it to look good instead of the way it looks right now? Then look no further than DeLong's. They do mowing, maintenance, fertilizer, weed control, aeration, and overseeding. They also do dirt work and grading, hydro seeding, drain tiling. And when those leaves start to turn and you know you need someone to pick them up so your beautiful lawn can be seen during the fall, they got you covered. DeLongs don't hibernate during the winter months either. If you need snow removal or salt application, big or small, they take care of that too. They do it all. If you got any need for any of those services, call up my wife's other cousin, Derek, at DeLong's Snow and Lawn Care, LLC at 319-240-0437, and I promise you he'll take care of you. Tell him you heard about his excellent services and impeccable work ethic on the What Is Up podcast, or just tell him Bubba sent you. Okay, so in 2014, you and Haley, you guys are living out in rural Reedland area. You've got one kid, Layla, and then life really starts to set in, man. Things get real. So why don't you kind of take me through the timeline of that?
Yeah, so 2014, like I mentioned, Layla was born January. Went through that brief period of time where we're like, man, where are we going to live? Found our house. Fortunately, everything worked out there on both ends, and we did both sale and purchase, all private sell. Mm-hmm. And we didn't really know what we were doing, nor did the other party. So we all kind of learned together. And fortunately, I'm business savvy enough that
that helps.
Contacted attorney and worked with our lender. We've followed this lender since we've been buying stuff. Mm-hmm. All the way through. So have a good relationship with him.
Good.
Shout out to Don there. There's something to be said about that with lenders and, not getting too close to them, but also having a good contact if you need something.
Yeah. Yep.
Don's good. He gets it. Even when we were young kids, he's always kind of helped financially coach us. So shout out to Don Putz.
Nice.
So we're in May time frame, young kids still, yet at that point, really 23 I was, and Haley would have been 23 at that time as well. So trying to figure out how to raise a kid, still trying to figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But, things were going well. I realized at that point that my knee wasn't going to hold up and let me do the things that I wanted in my life. So I mentioned 2007 and 2008, I had knee injuries, football related. I had surgery my senior year in the spring, so it would have been 2009. Things were manageable, but I still lived with a lot of knee pain.
Yeah.
And decided at that point, well, I'm trying to do stuff with Layla constantly up and down, and I'd still like to be active and go. That at 23, I couldn't live with this chronic knee pain. Mm-hmm. And I'd seen a number of doctors up until that point trying to figure stuff out, and pretty much was told, yeah, you're going to have to just live with this. Couldn't see anything on x-rays or MRIs.
Yeah.
Finally found a doctor that was like, yeah, there's something not right here, clearly. Like, I can tell that you've got a high pain tolerance. You know what good should feel like. You're still young. Like, let's just do an exploratory surgery. Mm-hmm. So September, I went in, Haley came in with me and did an exploratory scope. Knew there was some meniscus stuff that probably was catching. At some point, they've told me since my first surgery in 2009 that I'm going to have a knee replacement at some point.
Yeah.
They went in, they're like, okay, we're going to clean this up. Was in there hour and a half surgery at this point. get done. First thing I always do whenever I've had lower extremity surgeries, and I've had 4 or 5 of them now.
Jeez.
It's always checked, feet there. Yep. Okay. I can move them. I can wiggle my toes. I didn't lose a limb, right?
Yeah.
So, came out of surgery, and it was different this time. And I'd had 3 surgeries prior. So 1 on each of my Achilles and then my knee from 2009. So this was surgery number 4. Come out, and there's just a different vibe. And everything starts to wear off. Groggy. Okay. Yep. I'm feeling better. And then the doctor comes in, and they're like, hey, surgery went well. The exploratory part of it, we did what we could, but we found some things, and you're going to have to come back in another week. And you got to have another surgery, and it's going to be reconstructive surgery.
Ooh.
And I'm like, well, you were already in there. Why couldn't you just do it now? Like, why do I have to prolong this another week?
Yeah.
I needed a cadaver part, so they needed a ligament. So I'm living with somebody else's
What?
tendon, ligament, I guess, in my knee. So did what I could to rehab, and fortunately, a scope surgery isn't that intrusive.
Right, yeah.
And medicine had advanced bounds from 2009 to 2014. We scheduled it out. They're like, yeah, we'll have something ready for you. We went back a week later, and then I had that knee surgery. They did some additional scope cleanup, and then they reconstructed. But my kneecap was disconnected. So, yeah, a few titanium screws in there, and cadaver's ligament lets me now enjoy life. It was a long road to recovery, very painful, and like I mentioned, I've got a high pain tolerance. I'm not a big fan of taking medication, always worried about getting addicted. Just the effects it has on you. So a lot of it in my head is just, it's a mind game. I'm headstrong, and I got to the point the one night where I'm like, something's not right here. Was in a not great spot mentally, just given the challenges of dealing with the knee pain. Couldn't do anything with my young kid. Layla was 8 months at that point. Haley's doing everything for me, doing everything for Layla.
Yeah.
And the pain was unbearable. So I was like, we got to do something, or I'm going to do something, and it's not going to be good for any of us. So it was the middle of the night. Haley called. I'm pretty sure it was her mom. Dawn came out at like 1 a.m. and we went to the emergency room. And we're like, there's something wrong. And like right away, they're like, oh, you might have a blood clot. I'm like, well, at least we're catching it now if that's the case.
Yeah.
No, what it was I was in a full knee immobilizer, and they had the immobilizer too tight. There was a hinge bracket that was pushing right in on the side of my knee where they put 2 new titanium screws in there, and where it had been laid open for them to do the surgery. And so it was a simple, they're like, oh yeah, no, this just needs readjusted now that the swelling's gone down. And after that, I went from the worst pain I've ever felt in my life to, oh, wow, this is bearable. I mean, it was, a 2 or 3. I'm like, oh, I can live with a 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then things progressed from there. So that was September. At that point, bowling had just started. Haley and I were in bowling leagues. Even when we lived in Cedar Falls, we were driving up. At one point, we were driving up 3 times a week to bowl in Terpola, which was also part of our motivation. Hey, we need to move and get a little bit closer. Something that we did with her family. In fact, the 4 of us, Haley, me, her mom, and dad, we're all in a league together on Sunday night. So good way to bring all of us together. It was October. Me and Haley's brother, she has 2, Michael, so the older one, were out doing some work on one of their parents' vehicles, I think. I was putting new brakes on it, maybe. Knee was still pretty sore at this point. It was just a few weeks post-surgery. But was trying to do stuff and mechanically inclined at times. Again, kind of just goes with always being curious and wanting to save some money. And so helped them change the brakes. And I just wasn't feeling it because me and Michael were working out in the garage, and I still couldn't get around the greatest. Haley took Layla up to the bowling alley. For whatever reason, we decided to go into the bowling alley. I didn't really want to go, but Haley, I'm sure, pressured me into it. Wives are good at that, right?
Yeah.
But I went up there and got cleaned up. We went up there. Michael, I believe, dropped me off. Haley had a vehicle up there already. So he dropped me off, and then he went off, and he was doing things with his friends. He was in high school at that point in time. We're up there hanging out. Haley and family are bowling. Me and Layla are kind of hanging out doing our thing. Well, then her dad, Mitch, he hadn't been feeling real well that afternoon. Nobody really thought much of it. Next thing you know, he looks back, and he's just got tears running down his face. And it's like, hey, what's going on? And right there in front of us, his wife, my wife, his daughter, myself, and then his 2 younger children, Macy and Tanner, were all there present, and he ended up having a massive heart attack right there in front of us in the bowling alley. Very tough thing to see and deal with. At that point, I was just a firefighter. There was CPR certified. There was a couple other members there in the bowling alley that have medical experience. CPR started right away. I mean, basically, boom, he hit the ground, and we had people in action, 911 response activated right away. And, you know, when that happens, there's so many emotions and things happening, and we're in a full bowling alley with so many things happening and going on. And this just happened, and it's like, whoa, right? Reality, like, what are we going to do here? CPR, good quality CPR happened right away. Ambulance showed up in record time. You know, some of these events feel like they take forever, even though it's just minutes, but they were there quick. Came in, they did their thing. I remember, and we had to make plans for Layla. Of like, what are we doing with Layla? Had some plans even arranged for Macy and Tanner. We called Michael. He hurried there. And then we ended up following the ambulance down to Allen. I remember during that trip, I was driving. Dawn was with me, and then Haley and Michael were in the back seat. And I've driven enough and comfortable with emergency response. We followed the ambulance, and I made it clear. I'm like, hey, we're following you down. I'll give you your space, but I'm following you at whatever speed. And this, we're working. They're working a code in the back of the ambulance. Like, we're going, and we're going now. Dawn was so worried. She was a member of the Triple ambulance crew, that they were not going to like that I was driving as fast as I was. I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, we're going to get there. We need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
We got down there, and we knew. I knew at that point, like, enough, not the training I have now, but that it wasn't going to be good. And,
right.
Yeah, unfortunately, we watched him take his last breath there in the bowling alley. Very defining moment for all of us at that point. Don had 2 young children, plus another child that was in high school he had at the time.
Yeah.
Me and Haley had their first grandkid. So lots of challenges that then came from that. Dawn struggled a lot ever since that with finding her purpose in life and just the mental side of, you know, how do you care for yourself? How do you continue to love? Her and Mitch had been together for a number of years as well. So it really left a hole for her that honestly I'd say she never really could recover from, unfortunately. Right. So that was the fall of 2014. The community, family, friends stepped up in a big way and helped all of us get through that moment. You know, for all of them, tragic, unexpected loss with young children is challenging. The community did a great job of stepping up, helping all of us get through that time.
Good.
So, you know, that was a tough moment. There was nothing we could have done to change the outcome, and that's a big thing that I look at of, you know, had we not had people there that could have acted. What if, right? And Haley, I'd say more so than me, plays the what if game. There was no what ifs left on that from what we could control. And in fact, you know, again, God works in mysterious ways. I wasn't going to go. I still to this day don't know why I really showed up at the bowling alley.
Yeah.
But I was there, and you know, was there more just to help the family and myself included work through those challenging moments.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that's tough. That's tough. We are not promised tomorrow, you know. I always tell people, you know, the Bible gives the best explanations for life, for why we are the way we are, things like that. And that's one of those truths. We are not guaranteed a second beyond right now. So you definitely want to be thinking about, if you were to check out right now, where are you going? Because you can know you're going to heaven. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
So, all right, well, let's keep going, man. A couple twins enter the picture here in the next couple years, right?
Yep.
After all that tragic stuff, you got some joy.
Yeah, yep. So, you know, at that point, we all had to continue living life.
Yep.
Life goes on, right? And,
yep.
Yeah, so Haley and I, as crazy as we were at the point, decided, we've got a 1-year-old, I guess at the time. What? Might as well have another kid.
Stack them on top of each other.
My sister and I, Amanda, as I mentioned, we're a year apart, and it's nice just to have siblings close in age.
Yep.
So we're like, it'd be good to have another child to where they at least can help entertain each other, and okay, we can do one-on-one coverage, if you will, right?
Yeah.
2 kids, and we'd always talked about we wanted 3. Found out Haley was expecting. We went into the doctor's office. Our family practitioner actually had an ultrasound machine. He does delivery as well.
Okay.
So we're in there, and we had a good relationship with him. He was who delivered Layla for us, so we've been seeing him as our family practitioner. He's doing the ultrasound. Very up-spirited guy, just always in good mood, very religious individual. And he knew mine and Haley's personalities a bit on the lighter side. We try and keep things light. He's doing the ultrasound, and I look over, and he's got just the biggest grin on his face.
Something's going on.
And like just 2 years prior, not even 2 years, year and a half prior, we'd been there, we'd done that, we'd seen what ultrasounds look like, and he's moving around that ultrasound Doppler, and he's just got this big grin. And Haley looks at me, and I look at her, and I got this knot in my stomach. I'm like, man, we're hoping for a healthy baby, and healthy babies.
Plural.
And so twins, and you can't control this.
No,
we wanted another kid. We had one kid at 1 at this point, and now we find out we're expecting twins, and we're like, okay, well, it is what it is. And he's still doing his thing, the doctor, and
stop looking for a third one, would you?
He gets this look in his eye, and he's like just grinning from ear to ear at this point, and he's like, oh, and Haley's like,
he didn't.
Haley's like, do not tell me there's a third one in there. And he starts laughing. He goes, no, there's just 2.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, oh man, as if finding out you're having twins isn't enough. And then this guy's throwing that in there.
He's got some of your dad's sense of humor then. Faking a heart attack or faking triplets.
Yeah. But they were healthy, and we're like, okay, we're going to do what we can do here. And it is what it is. And we went all the way through both pregnancies without figuring out what we were going to have in terms of gender. And that was fun. One of God's real gifts in life, right? You don't ever know. And,
I love the surprise.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. And so, me, athletic, football-loving dad, hunting. Layla, obviously, girl. We're in the delivery room. Out comes the first one. It's Addison. She's a girl.
Okay.
And, we weren't with our family practitioner doctor. He just does kind of the simple delivery. Well, you're high risk if you're having multiples.
Yep.
So we were referred to another doctor. Ironically, the doctor that delivered Haley 23, 24 years prior as the delivery doctor for us. And
cool.
Very dry sense of humor, but dude knows his stuff inside and out. So it's like, we're in good hands here. Out comes Addison, healthy baby, 8 pounds, 9 ounces of baby for twins. So one kid, 8 pounds, 9 ounces.
And twins are usually
that much
smaller,
combined.
Right?
Yeah. And of course, Haley was huge. She had to be induced with twins. So out comes 8.5 pounds plus of baby. Baby's healthy, great. Okay, now the second one's kind of like twisted up there. So he did his thing and got the baby to flip. And then out comes baby number 2. And the first words, I guess, out of my mouth, and it was rather loud because the nurses a few rooms down at the station could hear me. They came in and gave me a hard time about it later. We have a wiener was, I guess, what I had pronounced for pretty much the whole delivery floor there in Allen to hear. And so I got my boy. Even if it would have been another girl, would have loved them just the same. But got my boy out of the experience there, and it was like 12 minutes I think between the kids, and at this point I just wanted a healthy baby, and I wanted Haley to do well.
Right.
But there's always in the back of your mind, you're like, come on, Haley and I had talked. We were probably done at 3 at this point. Haley was like, I wanted 3 pregnancies. I'm like, well, you're not really the greatest pregnant lady. Do you really want that?
Yeah.
But then the boy came out, and right away we're like, yep, nope.
We're good.
We're done. There's a colleague I have at work who has multiple sets of multiple children.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, yeah, no, like I wanted to go from 1 to 2 and then to 3.
Mm-hmm.
We just skipped 2. Like, let's not play with fire and go from 3 to 5 or worse yet, 3 to 6.
Yeah.
So we were done. But Wyatt, when he came out, also 8 pounds 9 ounces.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So Haley set the record at Allen Hospital for the most weight of live birth twin babies.
Wow.
And our doctor, and mentioned dry sense of humor, been doing this for years. Wasn't living with my wife, obviously I was. Mentioned she's not the most pleasant when she's pregnant. Was ready for these children to get out of her. And so every time we went after she hit 37 weeks, she's like, hey, I'm full term. Like, kids are measuring big. Can we just get this thing over with?
Yeah.
Every week he's like, they're going to come out. There's no way they don't come out. Well, then finally we're in there and he's like, yeah, fine. We'll schedule you to be induced, but there's no way it's going to happen. Fast forward, 17 plus pounds of baby come out. And he goes, we should have waited another week or 2. We could have set a world record and I could have retired. Oh. And like, Haley's like, no, like this was enough.
Wow.
My immediate response is like, would we get a discount? Like, when you deliver 2 babies, you do not get a discount. You're paying for 2 pregnancies. And we had 1 child, so we had 1 set of stuff for kids.
Yeah.
It was like having your first kid all over again when you have twins. It's like, oh, man. But again, our family and friends stepped up, and I think they ended up actually almost throwing Haley pretty much a second baby shower to try and help fill in the gap.
Yeah.
So that was in 2016. There's one other piece here, I guess, in the timeline that I'd like to highlight, and we'll get to it a bit later on as to connecting the dots. When we were, I think Haley, it was I remember the exact date. Haley was either pregnant. She had to have been pregnant with the twins because we hadn't bought the double stroller that we wanted. We had 3 kids at this point and car seats and diapers, essentially.
Yep.
And we wanted a big double stroller to where we could help carry Layla or put her in a baby wrap or whatever. We were at a wedding out by Dyke. It was actually at the Dyke golf course. We were just getting ready to leave. It was late enough at night, and we're like, okay, time to go home. We're driving home from Dyke all the way back up to Reedland area. It's like, yeah, people are getting to that point, and I need to be able to drive yet, and I've got a pregnant wife. Like,
yeah,
we're going. As we were out in the parking lot talking, we're getting ready to leave, and we look down towards the highway there that comes out from Dyke basically into Cedar Falls. We're standing on the parking lot. Somebody had run at highway speed basically off of a T intersection, jumped the highway, and then went down into the ditch, barrel rolled, and actually landed his car out on the green at the golf course. My natural thought was, oh, don't let that be somebody that was just here that drank too much and is drinking and driving. Haley and I jumped in the car and we immediately went down there and it's like, hey, what's going on here? And so this, I wanted to say that this was when the twins, but I don't think we were even in town yet. So we may have just been in Cedar Falls. But we go down there, and I told Haley, stay in the car. She was pregnant with one of the kids. It must have been Layla, as I think a bit more about this, because I wasn't a firefighter yet, and I mentioned I got on as a firefighter in Reedland before we even moved there. So must have been Layla. We get down there. I tell Haley, stay in the car. I got way over. It's late. I'm worried about people drinking and driving.
Yeah.
I crossed the roadway, went down there, and this guy's stuff from his vehicle is just thrown everywhere. I mean, he rolled multiple times, multiple ways. And I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be good. So I'm the first one down there. There's a guy that was actually at the acreage a half mile up the road that comes flying down in a UTV. He's asking, what's going on. I'm like, I don't know. I just got here. My wife's in the car. She's calling 911. I get down there. The car is sitting on its side, on the driver's side doorway, I believe. And there's this guy just white fists in both hands, still on the steering wheel. And he looks like he just seen a ghost. And I'm like, hey, you okay? And he responded to me, fortunately. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. But the car's still on. It's smoking a bit up in like the engine compartment area. it's like, dude, we got to get you out. And he had to have been on the driver's side downward. So I reach in, turned off the car. I'm in wedding clothes.
Yeah.
Turn off the car, and the guy's bleeding pretty good out of the head. He's got cuts and stuff all over. A deputy shows up. Deputy and I end up figuring out how we can get this guy out. Ended up kind of picking him up and pulling him out of the seat, just given how he was stuck in there. And then fire department, ambulance ends up showing up and transporting this guy. We go back up to the wedding. I'm covered in this dude's blood. So I'm like, I got to wash this stuff off. Well, then everybody thought that we were in the accident. I'm like, no, like, we seen it.
Yeah.
And so that was my first real experience in helping somebody as a layperson at that point.
Right.
But that was, one of those opportunities of like, I didn't even hesitate of like, I don't know who this is. The guy ended up falling asleep while he was driving. No drinking involved at all.
That's what it was.
But Haley knew his wife. They worked together. So get to Monday, Haley went to work, and this woman's talking about what happened. And this woman's like, that was my husband. And like, she didn't know anything of like who was there and, how things happened. She just got the phone call that, hey, your husband was in a bad car accident.
Okay.
The seatbelt saved this guy's life. No doubt about it. I mentioned his stuff was just thrown everywhere for like 100 yards out there from just barrel rolling. This couple wanted to give something to Haley and I, and that's not me. I don't want anything. And they're like, well, what do you need for your baby? Because Haley was expecting. So it had to have been Layla. He's like, well, there's this really expensive stroller that we want. And which is why I thought it was the double stroller, but it was actually the stroller where you could like grab and go the car seat and just clip it right on the stroller.
Yep.
And again, we're younger kids. Yeah, we had good jobs, but just bought an acreage more than we wanted to spend on it, and we're trying to figure out what the heck we're doing in life yet. They bought this for us.
Nice.
And so that was, very cool. And like most of the time now as a first responder, you don't get a lot of interaction with the people that you help.
Yeah.
And that's not why you do it anyways. But small world when you think about
Sure.
that. So that was a pivotal moment in my life of, hey, I want to be able to give back to people, and, fast forward, and that's why I jumped on the opportunity to get on the fire department. So I guess that was Layla time frame, so I'm a little bit out of order. But back to the twins, big, healthy babies. That was a tough time for Haley as we went through this. She
that's got to be trying, man. A blessing, but trying.
Yeah, well, and her dad's now gone, so she was struggling with just the concept of, my dad's never going to know his kids. My kids are never going to know that grandpa. Obviously, my dad was still in the picture, but it's a big part of life. And so, that was struggling. And through pregnancies, Haley struggled with depression.
Yeah.
And it took a toll, even I'd say, on our relationship, just around the fact that you have a baby, trying to figure out like how to be a parent, how to still love your wife, and it's a big thing. And with Layla, Haley had baby blue depression bad, to the point where like I would get yelled at if I went and picked up my own kid. No, that's my baby. And we got to the point where it was like, no, like, we're going to fix something here one way or the other. Either you're going to go and I'll go with you and you're going to get some help.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to knock some sense into you. Fortunately, she agreed to go and get help, and she's better from it. And honestly, it's something I'd say that more women go through as we went through this and some of the sessions that we were involved in. And, if I guess for all of you out there, husbands and wives, or, even I guess if you're not wedlock when you have a child, it's a big jump. It doesn't matter if it's your first child or second or third, whatever. Bringing a human into the world is tough. And then there's all these other expectations and pressures, and you don't know what other people have going on in their own lives and their own battles. Depression's something that's more common than not. So, make sure if you're feeling that way, I guess, if you're hearing this, there's people out there that are willing to support you and talk about it. It's not anything to be ashamed of.
Nope.
So,
and they're good at what they do.
Yeah, and so I know Haley's been a resource to a number of people. So, Haley's out there. I'm certainly reachable as well. If somebody's got something going on, don't feel like you're got to be big, bad, and put on this tough guy or tough gal persona. Honestly, you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others, and that's something that I hear a lot, especially in the first responder industry. Like, you have to take care of you before you can take care of others. And, it's kind of this onion of, if the core is not solid and strong, the rest of it isn't. So think of it as a pyramid. If the base isn't where it needs to be, the rest of everything that you're trying to do isn't going to be built on a strong foundation.
Yeah. I've heard people describe it as, if you've ever flown before, you get the whole rundown before you take off. If something goes wrong, you put your mask on first.
Yeah.
You got no shot at helping anybody else. Don't help them put their mask on, because you won't be able to.
Right.
So you got to take care of yourself for sure.
So we, Haley struggled with that, and that was a very challenging time in our relationship.
Oh, I bet.
As well. Not to mention, some of that put some strain, given her dad's health issues and how young he was when he passed, of just some questions and doubts around religion.
Okay.
And so we focused a lot of our efforts intentionally on, let's make sure we get back to the roots. Let's talk about it. But let's make sure that, we understand maybe not why, but how we move together forward from here.
Yeah.
And so those experiences have helped us continue to challenge one another on, are we focusing on the right thing? Are we spending our time in the right place?
Nice.
And again, it starts with, take care of yourself, take care of the home family front. And then from there, if you still have something left to give, well, let's figure out what are our focuses. So Haley and I'd say annually have a conversation on that of, where are we at? Are we good? Is our family good? Are we doing enough there? But then, okay, now where do we want to focus and spend our time on how we can give back to others?
Give back.
So
oh man, that's good.
That's been a key piece for us. And, with the kids, the Mitch passing situation, even with Haley's family dynamic for Dawn, I'd mentioned she was kind of checked out and just disengaged. Her grandkids were her passion and love in life. So trying to do things there to, allow her to try and see the positive. We weren't as directly involved with Macy and Tanner, and even Michael at that point in time, as we were still doing our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of challenges from, we have high expectations of those kids in Dawn's household at the time. But in all reality, they weren't really able to take care of themselves because they were trying to take care of their mom and cover some things up there, which kind of leads then into, I guess, the next big timeline event here of 2016 twins. We're just kind of doing our thing, figuring out how to be parents. We went from what we thought was going to be man coverage 1-on-1 to, oh crap, now we're playing zone, and we're
you
trying
are
to
outnumbered.
Yeah. But we had good family network, and grandparents were close by. Haley's great grandparents live in Reedland. They help us out a lot, so we were able to get by. And then 2020 happens. 2020 means a lot of different things for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
The C word was a big deal at that time, but we were dealing with some health challenges with Dawn that really started to ramp up that year. 2019, we kind of started to notice some stuff. Haley and I did. I was a bit more in tune to it, as we were doing just kind of basic everyday things, and Dawn couldn't keep up anymore.
Okay.
And she should have been able to keep up. Was kind of where we were at. She wasn't that old. She was in her 50s, and it's like, okay, well, you should be able to do this kind of stuff. And like, she had been able to before, and so like that for me was like, hey, like there's probably something here.
Yep.
And then 2020, her health really started to turn. She ended up getting diagnosed with liver cirrhosis. When people hear liver cirrhosis, the natural thought is what? What do you think of when you hear that?
Like alcohol or something.
Yeah. So Dawn, well, in her younger years, liked to drink, but in her older years, as I knew her since 2007, she was not an excessive drinker. She would socially drink on occasion, not a lot by any means. And my life, I don't consider myself a heavy drinker. I'm a social drinker. I'll have a few drinks here and there.
Yeah.
She wouldn't drink a whole lot of them. There was a couple key events, like when we would go to state bowling every year. She would let loose. That was kind of her thing. Okay, there's nothing that you're not gonna scar your liver.
Yeah, not a repetitive
from that.
Yeah.
So she had the rare 1% kind of liver cirrhosis.
Oh man.
And she had a number of kind of health challenges at this time. Not great spot mentally yet. Still, hadn't recovered really from the passing of her husband.
Okay.
Dealing with challenges of raising young kids, largely on her own. Was very stubborn, didn't want a lot of help from Haley and I.
Okay.
We were raising our own young family, so I think
Right.
a large part of it was just the pride thing.
Yeah. And so Tanner and Macy are like high school, junior high school at that time, or not quite high school yet?
Yeah, so 2020, Macy would have been 14, 15.
Okay.
And then Tanner's 2 years younger than her.
Okay.
So, yeah, junior high, 6th grade, somewhere in there. I'd say.
Gotcha.
And so her health was deteriorating, and Haley and I kind of knew, but she wouldn't let us in. And we had decent contact, more so with Tanner. We tried to connect with him because we knew stuff was going on, and we would play Xbox, actually. Almost every night I was online playing Xbox.
Okay.
Online with him, and he'd playing with me and Sean and some of Sean's friends, or sometimes I'd join them and their friends. And almost always, I could tell that things weren't quite right in the household.
In the house.
And finally, things got to the point she needed a liver transplant. Ended up having thyroid cancer spot, a couple nodules, which then sets you back on the transplant
list.
And,
man, yeah.
We got that removed, and it was curable with what they had to do, and it wasn't as bad as they thought it would be. But she was kind of in this downward spiral, mental health, trying to make Haley proud was what I at least sense as an outsider looking in, and was part of that core group. But I could tell she really was trying to keep Haley proud, and really because she wanted to see her grandkids. And Haley's constantly writing her about, hey, like, you need to do better for yourself and Macy and Tanner. Again, that goes back to take care of yourself before you can help others.
Yep.
Right? Things just kind of continue to spiral. It was January of 21, and actually it would have been December. It was right after Christmas in 20, where the first time she was hospitalized because health was just not where it needed to be. And even in the summer of 2020, Haley spent a week or so down in Iowa City because her health had just deteriorated. I think she had a lesion on her leg that became infected, and so that just weird health ailments.
Yeah.
And it was the indicators of, things aren't looking great here. After Christmas, she was hospitalized. I think COVID, somewhere in that period. And so then we had our first round of that nasty C word.
Yeah.
And so we got through that. All of us younger, anyways, got through it. And Dawn got through it. And then it was mid-January of 21 where she was kind of delirious almost. And we just knew things were off. The kids in the house had let us know that things weren't quite right. And Haley's like, well, what do we do? And I'm like, well, we need to get her to the hospital. So Haley and Michael were able to get her there, and she was very stubborn, didn't want to go, didn't want to be a burden. I was like, no, like, you need to go. Got her down to the emergency room, and they're like, yeah, like, we can't help her here. She's got to go to Iowa City.
Wow.
So she went down there for a period of time, and then it became clear. In fact, as part of that process, when Haley went up there to help get her to the hospital, that the environment that Macy and Tanner was in wasn't conducive for young children. At that point, they were young adolescents.
Yeah.
And so Haley called me, and she's like, what do we do? And like, I knew enough. I'd been up to the house and kind of seen the environment that they were living in, talked to Tanner enough, could hear kind of things that were going on as we were playing Xbox. And Haley's like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, there's only one option. And she's like, well, what do you mean? What is that? And I'm like, well, they're going to have to live with us. Like, we know she's going to be hospitalized for a period of time. We can't let these kids just continue to be in the environment they're in, let alone, like, you can't expect a 12 and a 14-year-old to take care of themselves in that environment. So, and they came. My kids thought it was the greatest thing.
Oh, I bet.
Aunt and uncle moving in. This is awesome, right? Like, super excited. Haley's coping, dealing with all of her mom's affairs, trying to focus on that. I'm worried about Haley's health and well-being.
Yep. I
don't have 2 more children at this point that I think on a temporary basis are responsibility. So trying to figure out how we take in 2 basically teenagers. And, help them get through this time. They're going through a lot. Poor kids have been through a lot at a young age.
Already, yeah.
And also, worrying about Michael and his wellness and what's going on with him. So lots of things all happening we took him in and thought that Don was going to get better and be able to pull through with what was going on. So I was like, yeah, bring him over, like temporary, we'll help them while we help Dawn get rehabilitated.
Get better, yeah.
And then, once she gets home, we'll see if, the conversation in our household was Dawn's going to get home. She's going to get better. She's going to figure out how to take care of herself.
Yep.
Once she can figure out how to take care of herself and prove to us that she can do that, then we'll let the kids go back home. Her health was not recoverable at that point. So we had to talk about placement within a rehabilitation center or a skilled nursing home, essentially. And she was still adamant at this point, kind of in denial almost, I'd say, that, I'm going to get better. Things are fine. Like, I'm okay. And so it created a lot of tension between Haley and her mom and even family, unfortunately. Haley was, consulting with the siblings on pretty much all of these key decisions.
Yeah.
But got to the point where we had to place her in a home, and she didn't want to go in a home. We fought a lot with the insurance company and placement homes, and like, hey, financially, like, she needs this care. She can't not go. And the hospital was like, yeah, she needs to get discharged. And we're like, well, still waiting on authorization on the insurance thing, and it's expensive to put somebody there. So we ended up working through the logistics, and we had some real challenges in getting things to work. Haley ended up taking a leave from work to just focus on family affairs and her own wellness.
Dang.
We got her mom placed up in Tripola, so nice and close to home. We knew people up there. She knew some of the residents even there, so we thought that might be good for her. We got her up there. We're still trying to be optimistic about things, and then ended up not seeing the progress we needed, and ultimately had to put her on hospice care.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know, typically when most people think of hospice, it's a very short duration.
Yeah.
They can be long engagements, which Dawn was a fighter. She was on hospice for a couple months, I believe.
Yeah.
And, we'd visit her, spend time with her, tried to spend as much time as we could, especially Haley and the kids. And the noise from family and friends. We had a lot of support through this time, but we also had some real people that just couldn't connect with why are we doing this, to the extent that Haley still, unfortunately, has a cousin that we will not speak to because she thought that we weren't doing what was in Dawn's best interest.
Oh, my goodness.
And so, it's sad, and everyone copes and processes things differently.
Yeah.
But, we did what was right for Dawn at this point. We weren't doing anything for any benefit of us.
Yeah, you didn't gain anything out of it.
Yeah, no. And so, that was hurtful for Haley more so than me. I kind of the mindset of, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to control what I can control and kind of F the rest.
Yeah, you want to be an idiot? Go ahead. That's fine.
And, it was tough for Haley, though, just given everything that was going on. And then to have a close family member that's now a naysayer and questioning it. And, like, it was a very hard decision for all of us when we had to make these determinations, put her on hospice, and that was what she needed. Like, she was in so much pain, and it's not like we gave up on her. I mean, she was in hospice for months. So, it's like, come on, you can still come out of this. And ultimately, things didn't progress and get better, and she ended up passing late April of 21. At that point, Mason Tanner had been with us for, 3-4 months. And we kind of knew at that point, okay, this is going to be your permanent home now.
It's a permanent thing.
My kids at that point were still loving it, minus Layla, because Layla wanted her own room. So there's been a number of times she still kind of takes some jabs at Macy, because Macy's eventually going to move out. Sounds like maybe next fall. And so she's constantly like, hey, you could move out. Like, at one point we were over at my parents in Dunkerton, and out of nowhere, Layla goes, hey, Grandma, Grandpa, don't you guys have an extra room in the basement? Maybe Macy could come live with you. And I'm like, geez, this 7 or 8 year old at this point is like already trying to solve problems.
Wow. Well, chip off the old block there.
Yeah. And, Layla loves Macy and Tanner, and it's great. I mean, it's almost like a sibling dynamic now, just given how things have progressed there. But, there was no other decision, honestly. Like, what are you going to do? So Dawn passed in April, and we went through the estate stuff. You know, we've got some questions a number of times. In fact, there's been more than some questions. One of the fundamental ones, so if anyone's curious that's listening that doesn't know, no, we did not adopt Macy and Tanner.
Okay.
We're their guardians. I think the state legal definition for them is there are wards.
Yep. Yep.
So Haley likes to give them some crap about that. In fact, Haley's sense of humor, as we're going through all of this, she's making jokes. We were even in the lawyer office for the kids, so you can't have conflict of interest. We had our own attorney through this whole estate proceeding and guardianship claim. The kids, we had to pay for a different lawyer for them. So we're still paying for all of this. But the kids have their own lawyer, and we're at the kids' lawyer office, and Haley makes a joke in front of them. And, like, we're trying to be professional. Obviously, we've been dealt a crappy hand, but what else are you going to do, right?
Yep.
Like, Michael, young, single male, we're not going to put this on him. And then aunts and uncles could have certainly done things, but at that point, like,
they're already rooted
and
with
so
you.
It's like, you know, this is going to be what it is. Haley makes the comment of, like, you know, it's still not too late for me to send you to the foster home in front of the kid's lawyer. And, like, fortunately, he knew that she was joking and kind of just laughed it off. And, like, Haley's running joke now is like, yeah, I paid for you guys. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah. So, yes, guardianship. There are legal wards. Honestly, we treat them, love them just like kids.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Everybody can see that. But yeah, I know there's people around that are curious, and we've talked about that a little bit. They kind of wonder, how did that all go out? In small towns, most of the information goes out, but not 100%. You know, so
there's a big age difference. Like, when you look at Haley in relation to Macy and Tanner, Haley just turned 33. Tanner's 15, 16 here in another couple weeks. Tanner was born when Haley and I were dating. Like, had we not made smart decisions when we were younger, he could be our kid. So, like, when we're out and about, we get it a lot of, like, oh, hey, is this your son? These are your parents. And,
it's close enough that
we're to the point now. Like, at first it was like, oh, that's weird. We're constantly correcting people, and now it's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, no, we're not. We've been very clear up front. Like, we're never going to replace them as their parents.
Right. Yep.
We're parent figures, and we're here to support them. And Haley a lot struggles with, when do I be the sibling role versus when do I need to be that authoritative parent figure and role. So Haley and I, fortunately, are on the same page most of the time, to where I'll know, like, if I need to lean in and be like, hey, no.
Bring some discipline.
Yeah. And they're super respectful. And, you know, my kids have done great with all of this, and Macy and Tanner have done great with them. So we were really worried when all of this started transpiring, just that temporary arrangement. We contacted school counselors in Reedland, and we're like, hey, this is going on. Let the teachers know, like, help us just keep an eye on the kids, and, you know, maybe do some counseling of, like, hey, it's okay to have feelings. Let's make sure you're talking about it.
Absolutely.
And so we've constantly tried to stay in front of that, and it's been tough trying to balance now 5 kids. I mean, we wanted 3 kids. Now we have 5.
Yeah.
We're at a point in our careers where there's a lot going on. And again, we have to reground ourselves at times. And, like, there's times where I'll get too far down a path on my career, as an example. And he was like, hey, you need to pull back, and I need you more
here
at home now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's times where, you know, we're very open, and we'll call each other on that. There's other times where big moments in both of our careers, or even Haley's academic pursuit now for her MBA, it's like, hey, I'm going to make this jump. One, are you aligned and committed to what that means for you? Because it's going to pull me a little bit further in this direction. Are you willing to pick up the slack?
Yep.
And honestly, it's that open, transparent conversation. There's times where it's like, no, like, nope, not a good time, not now. And then there's other times where, like, yeah, no, we'll figure it out. We've constantly figured it out.
Yeah.
A large part of that goes back to open communication, trust. We have a very sound relationship on trust, and just faith. Honestly, like, we don't know what we're doing most of the time. It may look like it, and we get that a lot of, like, oh man, you guys look like it, you know what you're doing. Well, I'm glad it looks that way, because a lot of the time we're just flying blind.
Yeah. That's. Yeah, I mean, I could say 100 different things on this kind of stuff, but I mean, the stuff you're saying is the bedrock of good, like, Christian marriage counseling.
Yeah.
Open communication. it's a two-way street as far as sacrifice. I mean, some of that responsibility falls more on the shoulders of the dad and the husband. Just biblically, it does. But yeah, I mean, man, that's really good stuff. And I don't even know what else to say. All the court stuff with the kids. I mean, I'm kind of aware of some of that. That like even if it's not that situation, the state will provide a lawyer for the kids, a guardian ad litem, and I've seen some of that stuff play out. And all that's just to make sure that the kids have a protective voice or whatever, just in case you two were not seeking their best interest.
Yep.
That's all that's for.
We have to
just to protect the
annual
kids.
reports to prove to the state that we're not just
and
taking
you
these
want
kids in
that
and abusing them and
yes, you some people might say, well, that's just offensive or whatever. It's like, no, that's how things are set up to try and protect kids from getting in bad situations and things like that. So I get it, man. I mean, that's a lot, dude. That is not everyone's typical story. You say that's the hand we were dealt, or even when you're talking about your EMT stuff, you say, I didn't even think, you just go. And just for the record, the people that can do that stuff, that can run face first into medical emergencies, I do not have the stomach for that. I can't see blood. I can't handle it. So for those who can, like, I am publicly saying thank you to all 13 of my listeners. Like, I thank you, because there's people that just can't do it, and you can, and you choose to do it. So super thankful. We were talking about that privately, like sometimes you don't think, you step up and do it because it needs to be done. You know what I mean? It's the way God made us, and that's kind of impressive when you think about it. So yeah, that's kind of one last thing. I had all these questions. I think you pretty much covered everything. Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that, like, we don't have it all figured out. It may look that way. You have to have faith. You have to have some sort of foundation to build on, even if it's challenged from time to time. I'm not saying there's tons of things you should doubt in the Bible itself, but life is hard. It's full of tremendous blessings, kids and this and that, but life is hard, and it's okay to have some doubts or struggles with that stuff from time to time, but definitely talk about it, get some help. I'm a big believer in being a part of a Bible-believing church. That is your support group. I mean, that is, when you read the Bible, a lot of that stuff in the New Testament is directed at churches. It's meant to be a community. We're not meant to do this life on our own. We're not. And some people say, well, I just don't. That's not my thing. Well, I'm sorry, but that's what the Bible says. We're in it together. I'm not saying people can come over and just help themselves to your refrigerator or anything, but you, with the experiences you guys have gone through, if you haven't seen it already, I guarantee you, God will use that to help someone else at some point. All of our adversities seem like we can end up using them to help someone else down the road.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Even Macy and Tanner have, Macy more so, she's a couple of years older than Tanner, and she's a bit more outgoing, talks about it. Tanner, very reserved, and if any of Tanner's friends are listening to this, they're going to learn a lot more about Tanner's background, because he's very closed.
Kind of holds it back.
Yeah. And I'd say that's more typical anyways of a male.
Of a young man.
Right?
Sure.
So, but yeah, Macy's been a resource to a few of her friends or
already
community members where they've had similar situations where they've lost a family member, and she's been able to help talk with them through some of the coping strategies.
Yeah.
It's tough to lose a loved one, let alone a parent, at a young age. And unfortunately, all 4 of the Bergman kids have lost both of their parents too early. So I mean, you can let it bury you, or you can try and help somebody else out and take those learnings. And
right,
Haley and I have got, I can't say a lot, but it comes up more than I'd care to admit, where people ask us, like, how do you do it? I had someone that point blank asked me one day years ago now. I was up at the bar having a couple social drinks. Someone came up to me and they're like, how were you and your wife still together? And I made a face like, I haven't talked to you in how long, and you have the nerve to come up to me.
That's pretty bold.
And be like, how are you and your wife still together? My immediate reaction was, like, you must not care too much for your teeth. Fortunately, I was in my 20s at this point when the comment was made, because I know high school me wouldn't have even thought about it. They would have got dropped. My response was, my wife and I have a good open relationship that's built on faith. And that was that. Like, I'd mentioned it earlier. One of my big mottos in life is control what you can control. There's stuff that comes up that you can't control.
Yeah.
And you just have to learn to adjust, adapt, and how you respond to those situations is what you can control. In that situation that night at the bar, I controlled my emotions.
Your reaction, sure.
And it was like, you know what? Okay, this guy's not even worth my time. So we're just going to move on, and that's the end of it. And Haley struggled a lot with that cousin situation on, how do you respond to that? And it hurts worse. It cuts so much deeper when you're already raw, and then to have family member questioning you and, do you even love your mom? Are you doing the right thing for her? Like, come on. Like, and a big part of this, if anything, and then we can move on if you want to move on, is you don't know what battles people are going through. It's so simple to stand as an outsider and judge people. And, again, at the surface, people that don't know Macy and Tanner, Haley and Michael's story and background, oh, yeah, whatever, things are going great. You guys have a perfect life. We've heard that a lot. You have a perfect life. Well, thank you. I take that as a compliment. Haley gets a little turned up about it. Me, I'm like, well, I take that as a compliment. We're doing something right. Yeah. Again, we're controlling what we can control. We don't need to be open, public about all of the challenges that we've had. You do what you can, and my goal here in life is to live a happy life and try and help others find peace in their lives, which is why we're so involved in what we do. And it's an entire family thing. It goes deep to the core in what we do and how we really behave and act, and we hold ourselves to pretty high standards.
Good.
We deviate. There's times, right? Like, oh, yep, nope. Let's
Messed
not
up
do
there.
that again.
Yeah, yeah.
And you own it, and you move forward together as a result of it.
Sounds good to me. Well, before we go to our next sponsor break, just give us a glimpse of what's it look like out at the Broten compound right now? What do you guys do? What are the kids doing? What's the fun stuff you guys do? Kind of give me some of the lighter stuff. We talked plenty about the serious stuff. Yeah. Give me some of that.
So all of the kids are involved in something.
Oh, yeah.
There's always something going on. Even myself and Haley are involved in a number of things. Community club, church council, Sunday school, leader, firefighting, EMT. On the kids' side, Macy's actively involved in choir. She's very exceeding, I'd say, within academics. Complete 180 from where she was when she moved in with us her freshman year, to the point where grades were struggling, but she was taking care of her mom at that point. So she's excelling. She just got accepted into UNI, which makes me proud.
Sweet.
For the fact that, it's my alma mater.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's been cool to see kind of her experiences and where she's going, and she's pretty sold now on going into elementary education. So again, giving back, helping build the youth, very cool. We'll see, I guess, if that sticks or not, but she's pretty confident right now that that's where she wants to go and what she wants to pursue. And honestly, I think that's where she's probably going to end up graduating with that emphasis. She's big into wrestling. She took that up last year, and she actually did really well. Yeah,
I saw some of that.
Yeah, and wrestling, physical sports is much more of my thing, more so than basketball. And basketball, yeah, that's fun, but I just wanted to hit somebody in high school. It didn't matter who it was, what reason it was for. So Macy and I would say, have become a lot closer through the wrestling thing, to where Tanner, basketball is his passion. 6'7", 15-year-old. We did a lot of basketball travel this summer. Yeah. So Haley and I would have to divide and conquer last year, and we're going to have to do it again this winter as well. I typically went to the wrestling stuff because I could help coach Macy on that side, and Haley knows much more about basketball. And when we had the opportunity, we would swap, take turns, or try and go together when we could. So Tanner's in football right now as well. Yeah. And cousins, if you will, in air quotes. Yeah. Playing together on Wapsie Valley JV squad. That's been cool and fun to see.
Yeah, that's been fun. Yeah, my younger boy JJ calls Tanner cuz, and back and forth, and we got some good football years coming up for sure if they stay out of trouble and stay in the weight room and realize their full potential. That's for sure.
Yep. And then with my kids, Wyatt is a aspiring shadow of me. honestly.
Cool.
So I got the boy that I always wanted, I would say. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. I'd say he gets that from his mother. A bit more than I do. I'm, hard shell, tough nut to crack, similar to that of my dad, I guess. But Wyatt, he loves anything sports, and he's really gravitated more towards, I'd say, Tanner's like his idol of sorts, or that's someone that he looks up to. So maybe more of a role model than an idol.
Yeah, role model. There you go.
And so that's been cool to see. So like Wyatt's been in wrestling, Wapsie Wrestling Club, last few years. He wants to make the jump to basketball because he sees Tanner. And Macy's like, yeah, but what about me? And he's like, yeah,
Oh.
So he's got time to figure out what he wants to do there. But
sure does.
We're in flag football season right now, so he's dead set on that. He's been a handful, Wyatt, for us. High energy, 7-year-old. But honestly, Haley and I love the energy that he brings. His passions, interests. He likes to do whatever I'm doing. So even this morning, before I came over here, Tanner and I went over and helping a friend on the farm, and without even thinking, Wyatt's like, I'm coming with. Okay, sure, perfect.
Cool.
You never know on Saturday morning if he's gonna want to go and hang out, do tablets, or if he's gonna want to go on the farm and do work, deal with the smell. Dog got skunked this morning when we were there, and Wyatt's natural reaction, I'm gonna go and look. I'm like, let's not. But so yeah, he continues to surprise me with how he behaves and acts. Layla, 3rd grade now, 4th grade. She's in 4th grade. She's gonna be upset, but she's much more like me, I would say, from the fact that athletically driven, but also takes after Haley from the fact that she likes to be the center of attention from a social perspective. That's not me. I will socialize if you're in my circle. If not, I'll talk to you. We'll hold a conversation. Haley's just very outgoing. I shouldn't say center of attention, but she's outgoing.
Yeah.
Layla, that's Layla's personality through and through, and she's kind of the class jokester from what I've gathered, constantly making goofy faces, which is a little bit influenced by me, a little bit, I'd say, influenced by Tanner as well. She's going to be doing volleyball here. And then we've got Addison, who just kind of goes with the flow. She's very unique, independent. She knows what she wants, which I'd say is my personality kind of coming through in that. She likes unicorns and arts and crafts and coloring. But recently she's developed an interest in a bit more physical play. And you mentioned it earlier, girls at a younger age are a bit more aggressive. Yep. So like she was always Wyatt's wrestling partner the past couple of years. She'd whoop up on him, and it would just make Wyatt mad. Well, even just recently, she's been, like, tackling Layla and Wyatt, like, kind of egging things on, and she's a scrawny girl.
Yeah,
and she'll hold her own. So, she's kind of like that silent kid, and, like, she thinks she wants to do cheerleading, and I'm like, you keep up with what you're doing, and you're probably going to excel as an athlete. Now, cheerleading, there's no knock on cheerleading, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, do you want to do that, or do you want to like go out there and participate,
compete
on
yourself,
the court? It'll be interesting to see what she wants to do. And they're so young, they don't really know. And like I said, Addison just kind of goes with the flow. She'll do her own thing. She doesn't care. She's probably the easiest from a maintenance perspective of the 3 kids that we have, and it's great. And ironically, she's the middle child, even though by only 12 minutes.
Right.
So I'd say us middle children do adapt well to the rest of the siblings, and we get along and we do what we need to. So it's been interesting seeing her. The kids all love to be outdoors. They love doing stuff with us. Very kind-hearted. They'll help out, do anything you want. We put up a pool this year. Against my better judgment, Haley convinced me into doing that, and the kids loved it. They were home this summer to where they got out and got to do some things. Haley and I both work from home, so it was good. Have something to get the kids out of the house when one of the teenagers would get out there and help supervise, and we still have that.
And now I was waiting to see how at the end of the summer how you said that went, because we've been debating on getting a pool. Now that anyone can get a pool anymore, it seems like rich people used to have pools and that was it, but we're getting tired of buying the pool pass. How did the maintenance on the pool go throughout the entire summer? Because that's going to influence me.
Yeah, so that was the deal when we got it. Haley was adamant that she knew how to maintain a pool because growing up they had a high dollar above ground pool,
like a metal frame above ground pool, or
yeah, like
okay.
the $10,000 options now.
Okay,
we bought the $500 option for year one here.
Yeah,
because I wanted proof that it was going to get used and that it was going to get maintained.
Yep.
Yeah, we went through a few $100s, I'd say, in chemical trying to maintain that thing. It went okay. We're going to drain it this weekend, I think, and then it's going to get cleaned up, and it'll probably go up next year again against my better judgment.
Okay.
But the kids loved it. I used it a few times. Friday afternoons, I would try and get off. It was a good way for me just to get out and spend some time with the kids.
Yep.
So it was nice. It was convenient. Maintenance, yeah, Haley didn't maintain it great. We got behind when we went on a week-long vacation.
It's hard to bring it back. It's easy to stay on top.
Tough so if you stay on top of it, you're fine. If anyone's thinking about getting a pool, the filter is the number one piece. Keep that water moving. Keep your filters clean. Keep up, like you said, on your chemical, and then it's pretty smooth sailing. So yeah, we'll do it again next year, I'm sure. Honestly, if you spend the money and get the $10,000 pool, it's a lot easier to maintain. Is what we've been
The
told.
filter system's way better.
The filter system, you can get it heated if you want. You can go from the poor man's version where you got to do more work to the Cadillac version of an above ground pool.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I called and was poking around on if we were gonna spend $10,000-$12,000 on an above ground pool, we're out in the middle of nowhere. I don't want to have to worry about high winds in the winter and that component. It'd be pretty cool to have an in-ground pool. Until I got the quote back, and it was $60,000+, and I'm like, yeah, no. For that rate, I could just buy a $500 pool every year and throw the pool away when I'm done.
Yeah,
and not have to worry about it. Yeah, we'll see what next year brings. More than likely, it'll be the same pool that we have now, put back up, unless I throw it in the garbage after I try and clean up because it's nice and green and moldy right now again because it hasn't been getting used. So,
oh man.
But the kids loved it, and $500 is.
That's a small investment for a good family activity.
Small investment for what we did. And, kept the kids out of my hair. Yeah, the pool was all right.